Hello, everyone, and welcome to Film Independent Presents, our now virtual year-round screening and Q&A series. I'm Brian Sheehan from Film Independent. First off, I'd like to thank some of our loyal supporters, our lead sponsor, the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, our screening partner, Vision Media, and our media partner, the Los Angeles Times. Thank you for joining us for this Q&A all about Snowpiercer. Today we have a special guest moderator, Michael Schneider, senior editor at Variety. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen, and hopefully we can get to them towards the end of the session. And without further ado, I will let Michael take it from here. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you, Brian, and thanks everyone for joining us here talking about Snowpiercer Season 1, but we can also talk a little bit about Season 2 as well. Maybe we'll get a few hints, a few spoilers, although I've known Graham for a while. He's a little stingy when it comes to the spoilers, so we'll see what he gives us. But let me introduce you to our panelists. First off, she, of course, plays Melanie Cavill on this show, Jennifer Connelly. Jennifer, welcome.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
Absolutely. He is Andre Layton on the show and on every single show on television right now. I was just saying, Daveed Diggs, he is everywhere. Daveed, welcome.
What's up?
And he is the executive producer of Snowpiercer, Mr. Graham Manson. Graham, welcome, welcome.
Hi, Michael. Hello.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll get into some spoilers if you haven't seen Snowpiercer Season 1 just yet. First off, shame on you. But second of all, I believe all episodes will be on HBO Max starting in January. So you've got a little more time to catch up on Season 1. But let's first back up for folks who aren't familiar with how this show came about, and particularly the cast members, how they got involved. Jennifer, I want to start with you. Melanie Cavill is a very interesting character. We meet her as one character, and by the end of Season 1, we've learned so much about her history, who she really is, and so there's so much that goes on. It's a really interesting role. What was it about her that drew you to doing Snowpiercer?
I thought she was really complicated, which I liked. I thought that she was a woman in a really interesting position. I liked that she was the person at the helm of this whole enterprise. I thought that there was just a lot to explore with her. Like you mentioned, she was someone who when we first meet her, we meet someone very different at the beginning of Season 1 than we come to know by the end of Season 1 and going into Season 2. I thought that she had a really interesting journey of a woman who was really doing what she thought was the right thing for everyone, but along the way did some very bad things. I thought her journey was really complex and intriguing.
Yeah. What do you make of those choices? Because you're right. Ultimately, we realized that she felt she needed to do what she did to protect humanity and the people on the train, but it came at a price, at a severe price.
Yeah, I mean, I think that she made a decision that she thought was the right decision, and I think in a way, I mean, I understand why she made that first decision by taking the train. She did it because she wanted to save humanity, and she didn't trust Wilford. She didn't trust that the train would survive with him. But then she inherited this system, the way everything was running, and she kind of chose to maintain the status quo in terms of the way everything was structured and the way everyone was living, the class structure, all of that. What do I make of those choices? I think that she didn't create the system, but she didn't change it either. But at a certain point, she kind of takes stock of the things that she does, and she makes a different choice. So I really admire the fact that I think it came about through her relationship with Layton. She really looks at herself. She really looks at the things that she's done, and she decides that it's time to make a change, that she can no longer accept the way, the status quo, that there has to be a new direction.
And Daveed, bringing your character Layton into it, obviously he's sort of the hero of season one and sort of bringing about that change. Although now we kind of wonder how long is it going to be, that now that there's a new train approaching. But what did you make of Leighton? And he obviously was not without his own flaws.
Yeah, I mean, that was the exciting thing about him. He was someone not benefiting from the status quo and always working to make it better for him and for his people, for everybody living in the Tale. But is such a practical person when we meet him. Is such a willing to play the long game, trying to look at all sides of the situation and really plot and be careful and safe and plan things out. Because he is all for revolution, but not really all for losing life. And I think that's an interesting thing about Leighton, is that he values life very highly, maybe except his own. But he puts a high premium on living and wanting to keep everybody alive. And I think his hand is forced early on in the season, and we start to see sort of the toll, as the bodies pile up in season one, we start to see the toll it takes on him, and that becomes one of the things that he's fighting through. Does leading this revolution necessitate all of this death? And if so, is that cost worth it? And those are just some of the issues that Leighton is dealing with over the course of the season.
Yeah. Oh, simple issues, along with the post-apocalyptic nature of their life.
Yeah.
And Graham, that's bringing you into the conversation. And I actually talked to you earlier this year when the pandemic first sort of was getting underway about launching a show like Snowpiercer when we're dealing with a lot of these issues of isolation and class and a lot of the things that you deal with in Snowpiercer. Obviously, these aren't new issues. They're just heightened this year by everything that's gone on in the world. And what was it like for you as the show was premiering to realize that this is an interesting world to be premiering a show talking about a lot of these issues when we're sort of actually talking about a lot of these issues in real life?
Yeah, I mean, it was strange and, sort of felt a little prescient, I guess. But, that's, in the sci-fi and writing sci-fi like this, we're always trying to press up against, the zeitgeist or what's possible, even in something that's sort of as, outlandish as Snowpiercer. And as a concept, socially, we're pushing for those that, drive to realism and always, bearing in mind that the world that the train left behind was this world now, our contemporary world. That's the world that everybody's pining for. So, we end up looking at things like privilege and class divides and incarceration, immigration, things that are like writ large during COVID, and then we're talking about it, and we're all like sitting in our couchettes on the train discussing it. Kind of, that's how it feels. So it's part of trying to write and create sci-fi that is cutting close to the bone. You find it in unexpected ways, and who would have seen this coming, right? Oh, everybody. That's the problem.
Yeah, that is the problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is the truth, and it is a reminder that society is to some degree hanging on by a thread. I'm impressed that we meet the characters 7 years in, that they've managed to hold on for that long. What should we make of that, and just in general the theme of season one of Snowpiercer?
Well, I mean, that is that's the flip side to some of the things like class division, class warfare, the violence and the selfishness in the drive to survive that we look at. We look at the other side too, which is the human connections and the personal sacrifice. Both these characters deal with both of those things, as well as the will it takes to lead and when the stakes are survival. And that sort of, I think both David and Jennifer's characters deal with that on an episode by episode basis, like from sort of like saviorism to very practical decisions of compromise, right?
David and Jennifer, talk about doing this show, practically on set. I know they built a number of these cars to represent the 1001 cars on the train. And I've heard interesting stories about how unique it was to be in these cars. You've got PAs pushing the cars on the side to sort of simulate you're actually on a train. What were some of the challenges and some of the unique aspects, Jennifer, of working on a set like that?
Well, the sets were, the sets were, wait, I'm sorry. I have to change my view. I'm sorry. That's so distracting. Okay, better. I'm back. Sets were beautiful and extraordinary and vast, and there were so many of them, and there are so many cars built at the same time in the studio that we're working on the different sound stages. I was perpetually getting lost because we had so many of them, and they all look the same from the outside, pretty much just like these wood sets. And then you go inside and there are these incredible worlds that have been created. And I thought there was pretty much no downside. They were pretty fabulous to have those worlds created so beautifully and so richly. I thought that the variety that that they managed to capture in those sets that again all looked the same from the outside, and then you went in and it was like you had these sort of worlds unto their own. It was a lot to work with. I thought there was so much imagination and creativity, and they're so beautifully constructed. So I really enjoyed it. There was like one set I think where there was some green screen, the sushi car, where there was an aquarium. Other than that, it was all practical and real, which is such a joy and delight.
Yeah, I think part of the fun of watching the show is trying to imagine in your head how the train is set up and the different worlds, the different cars. David, what was that like for you being on set and acting in that world? Are you trying to imagine in your mind, where am I in terms of the car? Where am I running to? What was that experience like for you?
There was a lot pretty much before every scene, we had to have an argument about which direction was what was up train and what was down train.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like 90% of your job as an actor is remembering where you're coming from and where you're going. That's generally across the board,
Uh-huh.
And it's usually not that hard, but on these cars, it was always like, okay, I've just traveled I've traveled 40 cars approximately. How did I get there? Was it in the subtrain, under the train, or did I run? Okay, I ran. How long did that take me? Great. I'm out of breath right now. That's all I'm trying to get at, right? And which way did I come from? Are we sure? Should I enter from this side or that side? There's all of these interesting complications about working in one car at a time for a thing that's representing 1,001 cars.
Yeah. No, the world building is part of the fun of the show. The different lands, the different worlds, and imagining like you have to go through to make it to another car. So that's part of the fun of it. Graham, talk about sort of the structure of the show. I sort of like the idea that almost as sort of an entry point, you had this murder mystery to kick things off. There was almost a procedural element of bringing Leighton in as this ex-detective who's going to solve a crime, and it kind of brought people in to serve then as a larger jumping off point for what the season was really about. How did you kind of structure that?
I mean, that was pretty intentional as a great way that we kept to get Leighton out of the tail and to see the train for the first time through Leighton's eyes and to meet Jennifer's character so that there was mystery there. And then, it's just, exactly. Help me out. I forgot what the question was.
I know you. Starting out the show there and then going from here, maybe it's a good time to bring up, you obviously wanted to end on a big cliffhanger in season one. Let's jump to the chase real quick. Ending that with the reveal of, sort of there is another train, and where are we going to go from there? Talk a little bit about that and sort of building this world. Are there more trains? As you sort of move on with this show, how big is this world getting?
Going back to your question, which I remember now, Leighton comes out of the tail and we meet the train, and then really we always knew we were telling a first season that was a story of revolution. And then in this, terrific transfer of power that occurs between Melanie and Leighton, we're just about to set about going about the hard work of creating a democracy when Wilford's train appears on the horizon. So that seemed like a really terrific jump off for season two, a really great cliffhanger. And it sets us up for a season two that's like, David has just got this mantle of responsibility that's a lot of hard work in itself. And it's quickly thrown on its ear with the arrival of essentially the smartest and most dangerous man in the world, who also has a long history with Melanie. So we again, challenge Leighton with, what's better in terms of survival, authoritarianism, or striving for democracy. We play with that through season two, and while Jennifer makes this discovery that sort of might change everything, David is having this discovery that it's a hell of a lot harder to be a politician than a revolutionary, perhaps.
Yeah, no, that's a good sort of teaser. David, what do you make of that? In sort of now, Leighton does have the weight of the world on his shoulders, and he had a cause before. Now his cause sort of becomes survival, I suppose.
Yeah, I think Leighton was fighting to make a more just, more equitable society, but I don't know that he was fighting to be the leader of that society. He never claimed to have all the answers, and that when that became thrust upon him, all of a sudden, he has to make a lot of decisions really quickly, and he doesn't have the history with that position that Melanie does. And certainly that Wilford does when we meet him. So Leighton's mistakes, I think, become particularly costly and more frequent than he is used to making them. I think he's not really used to feeling that uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying? Even when he's like thrown in the tail or thrown in jail or forced to like fight in some crazy situations, he's pretty good at that. That stuff makes sense to him. I think dealing with angry unions is a whole different kind of battle that he's never had to fight before. So it's
Ruth.
Yeah, or just Ruth. Yeah. So those are yeah, it was a really interesting season and a really kind of fun challenge to keep finding ways for Leighton to continue to learn and continue to be off balance and not really know, not be as sure of himself, and figuring out where to ask for help from.
Now, at the very least, he has access to that great sushi, though, right? Is that the spoils of being the boss?
Yeah, it doesn't always work out as well as one would have hoped, but yeah.
What's there's the obviously the sci-fi sort of dystopian element. What Jennifer did? What drew you to sort of that side of being in a sort of quasi sci-fi world and the dystopian elements of this story? What sort of are those stories that you're drawn to? Or does that interest you? Is this something that's sort of, you wanted to play in, or what is your feeling about those kind of stories?
Well, I thought that the show had the possibility to talk about some really relevant and important themes, and ask some really interesting questions and explore some interesting territory. But since it was done through the sci-fi lens, it was also done in a way that allowed it to have a spirit of fun and entertainment. And so I like that about it. I thought the themes were really interesting. I thought the character was really interesting. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean I like that you want to have some comedic element every once in a while, Graham. Talk about the balance of not doing a purely dark show, and showing some light and showing some hope in all of this.
Yeah, I mean that's really important. I love that tone. I also really like that Snowpiercer's tone can support a lot of different tones within it. We're a mashup, we have really heart to heart character drama between two, between great actors. We have moments of high action, embellished with great CG effects, and then we have these we have set pieces, and we have all kinds of dark humor. I really can't avoid the dark humor. It's got to come out. And we have some great characters, new characters this year that carry some of it. Sean Bean is as Wilford is just a larger than life and dastardly character. And he has a henchman played with great relish by Tom Lipinski. That's certainly, I think the humor and the black humor and that aspect, I'd say, is probably, we have more of it in season 2. I'd say season 2 is even more fun,
Yeah.
And part of that is thanks to we had great guest directors too. Christoph Schrebe is our new producing director, and he really set the tone with the first 2 episodes. He's our German energizer buddy, and he brings this energy to the set that we're really loving. He also looks exactly like me, which freaks out the cast when I speak with a German accent.
He's a better dresser though. So
he's way cooler. He's from Berlin. I'm not.
Speaking of Sean Bean, he tends to bad things tend to happen to him on television shows. So I think there's even like a hashtag at some point, "Don't kill Sean Bean." So I don't know what that's a spoiler at all, or a hint at what's to come. But talk about for you, doing a show that has elements of sci-fi and dystopia. Does that appeal to the inner geek? What's your sort of general feeling on those kind of stories?
Is this to me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I'm a pretty like deep dive sci-fi nerd. I love that stuff. And so it was definitely one of the things that excited me about this show. But I think, as Graham said, and as we discover more and more about what the shows, the great thing about television is you keep learning as you go. It's a living, breathing thing. And I think we keep discovering more about what the show Snowpiercer has the capacity to hold. And I think it's right. The further we go down, kind of the more colors can be added to the thing. And there are some, there's so many different styles mashing up in the world. And it is the sci-fi conceit that allows for that, right? You get a lot of freedom by setting something just a little bit further than our capacity to imagine in being present. So and I think it's made room for a lot of humor. It's made room for a lot of really sweet moments. and yeah, and just a ton of different characters to relate to and to see inside of. And I think the cast, all the returning cast and all of the new folks are so amazing, that you really do start to care about everybody. And I think that is a tribute to really everybody working on things. It's a ton of characters. There's a lot of people on this show, and I think in different hands you could sort of wonder why, but everybody is, I don't know, I find myself missing the characters not being around them. You know,
Yeah.
you want to know more about them.
Yeah. That whole community and how they've sort of survived that amount of time. Real quick, Graham, before we go, we've got some audience questions as well, but give us a little taste on where things stand in terms of production. So season 2's wrapped. You're sort of in post right now, pretty far along, I assume. And then what's the plan for season 3?
We are pretty much through season 2. You know, we're locked anyway. Special effects are still coming, but I think we've got 7 or 8 locked episodes now, and we'll be finishing up in time for the January air date. And season 3, we have begun throwing the things around in the writer's room. So hopefully we'll be announcing that soon enough too. And just in terms of January, you know, we're just really excited to pay off this cliffhanger. You know, Jennifer met her daughter at the very end of season 1. We've got Rowan Blanchard, and a terrific budding and complicated relationship to play out between those two.
Yeah, very excited to see where that goes.
If it's complicated to figure out where you are on the train, David, just try and conceive of it if the train was suddenly going backwards. Now its direction is up.
Yeah, I'll just ask you every 30 seconds.
Well, let's jump to some audience questions now. First off, speaking of being in a perpetually moving train, Tayu asks, if you were stuck in one and you could make one special carriage, what would it have? What would your ideal train car be?
I have a room in my house that my partner built for me that is like a little area below the stairs. That's just where all of the vinyl is, and a record player, and like a really nice. So it would basically mimic that, but be bigger.
A vinyl room. I like it. How about you, Jennifer? What would if you were stuck on a train for the rest of your life, what would be your go-to room?
That's so hard because I so love being outside. It's like a joke in my family. I say like at least a couple times a day, let's go outside and get some fresh air, move around a little. Everyone in my family makes fun of me. So I don't know, is there any way to like simulate some kind of outdoor experience? Because that would be the hardest thing for me, would be to be inside for the rest of my life.
Yeah, because what's the temperature outside, Graham? It's like what, negative
117 degrees.
Oh yeah, not bad
on a balmy day.
Balmy.
Question from Peter, who asks, and this is kind of a fun one, would you ever consider doing a musical episode? Since several of the cast members, including Mr. Diggs right here, are well known for their Broadway stints. Could there maybe even be like a fun, like, you know, imaginary moment where there's some song and dance? That's
certainly
for you,
not
Graham.
out of the question.
And anything's possible on this train. I would say it's a missed opportunity if it doesn't include Mike O'Malley. I will say that in terms of like who is consistently writing the musical of Snowpiercer in real time, Mike O'Malley adds a new song to that musical every day on set.
I'd love to see that. To both actors, this is from Alva. What was your favorite train car to work in? Jennifer, was there a set that you particularly enjoyed?
Um, Let me think. They, I mean, I guess it's different because they're cars that I liked looking at visually, but they weren't quite as fun to work in. Like the sushi car was super cool looking, but was it the most fun to work in? It wasn't like honestly, the first class dining room was quite fun because it had that big staircase going on and the sort of all the different levels to it. And then there are always these really amazing characters and quite funny characters in there, and things like lizards with collars on and things like that. So that was fun. I know that's not one car. And I like the engine too, except we had these impossible chairs for some reason. That the engine was really cool, but the chairs were impossible. They were so huge. You were always tripping on them, and you couldn't move. They were so heavy too. So I guess all around that leaves me at the first class because workability and design.
Yeah. And I love that they're always just wearing their pajamas in first class, like, because that's what you would do, right? David, did you have a favorite car?
I love the subtrain. I think the little shuttle that rides under the train. I think both because it's kind of an amazing feat of engineering, like the way the pistons on those walls are moving, and just the fact that that is a train car that we sit in that moves forward. And I think also because, since generally speaking, the things that are happening in there are us sitting on a car and being wheeled along, they tend to be easier shoot days for me. So I also enjoy that.
Actually, I think I take that back. I'm thinking about it, and I think that the third class cars were actually my favorite because they were so creative and inventive, where everything was repurposed and they were built out of the shipping containers. That I think was pretty special. I remember I would walk around in there and just sort of marvel at, sort of the creativity in the set design. I thought those were pretty cool.
Yeah, the design is amazing. Got a question from Jesse. This is for you, Graham. And speaking of sushi, I think we all have sushi on the brain. Maybe we're just hungry. I don't know. But Jesse is curious about the role of food on the show, both the sushi and the contrast between what they eat in different cars. How much thought goes into in the writer's room in sort of the food aspect of it, and then how does that come into play with the production design?
Food, we thought about it a lot in terms of a closed system that has to produce what it needs. And then we broke it down by class, of course. So a plethora in first class, descending down to cafeteria style third class, down to the tail where we kept the idea of bug bars from the movies, and then that's what people get used to. And then the reality of the train is there's the fluctuations in supply chains. They have accidents, things freeze out, they get cold. They're always battling with the scarcity of resources, which leads to conflict. So food is it's incredibly important on the show, and food actually creates drama on the show.
Yeah. Some of my favorite moments are when Leighton's doing his investigation and he makes sure to grab like handfuls of food when he's talking to the first class folks. It's like, I'm not going to pass that up. I've been eating bug bars for 7 years.
Well, we have more fun with food coming up in season 2 as well.
So we have questions. I'm going to combine these from Tomorrow Charles and Luciana, who want to know for the actors both the most complex moment for you, but also your favorite scene. So David, I'll start with you. Is there a favorite scene you had, or a most complex moment that you sort of had to work on to crack?
I mean, there's a lot of favorites. My favorite scene that isn't a spoiler, I think, is because we were talking about it earlier, so it's probably just why I'm thinking about it, is the towards the very end where Ruth shows up to greet Mr. Wilford with the kids chorus singing, and then threatens to shoot everybody if she doesn't. She's not allowed to greet Mr. Wilford. I think it was a lovely bit of acting by Allison Wright, and fun to be on the other side of, because it is so unhinged. But in terms of difficult, complicated scenes, I don't know. There's a lot of them. I mean, the storyline between Leighton and Zara is so fraught, and I think nailing that was really complicated because it's a very grown up relationship in a way that you sort of don't realize till you're working in it, that like doesn't often exist in television, or we're not used to seeing or dealing with. People who are you know, connected together but no longer together, but still have feelings for each other, but are also bad for each other sometimes and also hate each other. Like that's like real life, but I don't know how to act that so well sometimes.
Yeah.
So it was, and I think it's also, you know, tricky to find the language for that too. So I think all of us, like show wide, we're sort of spinning on like continuing to chip away at that relationship and making it feel honest to how it really is. Because it is, I think when we do get it right, it's something that so many people understand, because that is actually where we all live.
Yeah. Great. Jennifer, how about you? Favorite scene, and also sort of the moment that was tricky for you?
Well, favorite scenes to play, to work on. I'm kind of with David, and I mean, I think Allison is so fabulous. Allison Wright, she's just so great and such a joy to work with. So in season 1, I have a scene with her where we have a kind of big confrontation where, you know, everything's sort of coming to a head, and she feels betrayed by me, and I'm kind of trying to implore, trying to, you know, argue my case, and it was just such a joy working with her. She's so fabulous, and it was a nice long scene, so we got to spend some time working on it, and so that was really really fun for me. I enjoyed that. And hardest scenes in season 2, there was a moment where I guess the moment where I see my daughter for the first time, who I thought was, I don't know, am I allowed to say this? Is this a spoiler? But
I think you're on the right side of the fence.
okay. I see her for the first time, and of course I thought that I assumed that she was dead all of these years. So we have this moment where I see her, and I'm there's a reason I can't move in the moment. I can't go to her. I'm being watched. So there are all these reasons why I'm kind of physically stuck, but I'm also kind of like, you know, there's the joy that she's alive, the guilt over what happened when when I left her, the concern over what this might mean, where she's been all of these years and who she's with. So it's just sort of all of this stuff playing at the same time. And the reality of it is you're kind of standing on a tape mark on the floor, and they say action, and you're like, what is that? What are all those things? Just so that was interesting.
Yeah. You're right, by the way, about Allison Wright, who is so amazing. And I like to think that this character is her revenge for being poor Martha on The Americans. This is like that character now is kicking some ass. Graham, I think we have time for one more question. And I've got someone asking about the physics and the science on the show. How much in the writer's room do you guys geek out on that? And how much does that play into having fun with, like, how would this work if this were a real thing?
Yeah, a lot. You know, we try and stick as close as we can to scientific fact. And once we establish that fact, we'll like take a leap of imagination. So we're trying to stay close as we can, but giving yourself that sci-fi leeway. So sometimes that comes down to not explaining things too well. But we really geek out on it in the writer's room, and we also work hard on it. Jennifer can attest to this with our special effects department and our art department in designing some of the gags that we do. I'm thinking about times that we go outside, and certainly Jennifer Melanie has a really terrific episode in the middle of season 2 that is quite a pattern breaker that we'll be looking forward to. A lot of technology involved in that. And this year we also look a little bit at, a little closer at what makes the Eternal engine tick, which is of course the sort of, Swiss watch at the middle of it all.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, a lot of that sort of lends itself to some of those exciting moments where, is this train going to survive? Well, first off, if you haven't seen season 1, like I said, I believe you can find it right now on various TNT sites, but the entire season will be available on HBO Max at the start of the year. So do check it out. And in the meantime, we will look forward to season 2 as well of Snowpiercer. So thank you so much, Jennifer, David, and Graham. Always a pleasure. And have a great holiday. And for everyone else, stay safe. Wear that mask, wash those hands, all the good stuff. And we will see you in 2021. Thanks, everyone.